everybody, it's your crazy fangirl Shime. I hope you guys are having an amazing day, and today we're here to finally talk about Wicked for Good and break down my review of the film. I'm so excited to be talking about this, guys. You guys know I absolutely loved Wicked Part 1. It was such an incredible film and such a achievement for musicals in the movie industry being made into movies, and yeah, it just blew up and it's so popular now. So of course, with Part 1's achievements and its great success came quite high expectations for the second part. However, being someone who knows the stage play by heart now, and also parts of the story that they took from the book and stuff like that, I know that it is kind of the weakest story out of the two. Either way, I was still so excited going into this film, and we're about to break all my thoughts down right here in my review. Of course, I did my makeup, and I'm wearing like green earrings as well. There you go. Because last year, I think I just did a pink look, and I was like, this year, I actually really want to play with the colors, and it actually turned out really nice. Comment your thoughts as well on the review, and anything that I say. Like, I would love to have a conversation about Wicked. Also, may I preface by saying this is a super spoilery review. Like, I am going deep into spoilers that I didn't get to go into part 1, so we are going to analyze everything here. I wrote 12 pages, so who knows how long this video is going to be, so I apologize. So we're going to talk about John M. Chu. Obviously, he really did an incredible job with Wicked Part 1, and I think he did an incredible job too for Wicked Part 2 of For Good. I think one problem I had though was the pacing of the movie. I actually prefer it a lot more on film than I do on the stage. I think the stage show just kind of lacks kind of what the film brought to it, which was, I guess, a bit of nuance to some of the scenes, and I think again, like, it need like that close-up time with some of the actors and those moments where you can really connect with them. On the stage though, it's a little bit harder because a lot of it's going really quick and you don't get the time to do that. And of course, I said this previously, when you're watching a stage show, it all depends where you're sitting, like if you can actually see the actors' faces. I do feel though they could have fleshed out some characters a bit more and some of the story beats, because it felt like this was also like kind of rushing to the finish line. And as we've seen now with behind the scenes stuff, that there was a lot cut from the final movie. I don't think that is up to John M. Chu though. I think that definitely is something to do with Universal, unfortunately. I do think though the PG rating did hold it back in certain instances. Like, if they could have gone to an M rating, it would have been so interesting what they could have done with certain scenes, because obviously this part is a lot more darker in its tones, in its subject matter. It's really delving into the politics of the Emerald City and Oz. Glinda basically being the figurehead and like the spokesperson for an authoritarian fascist government, which is insane. And the propaganda as well, which very much reminded me of World War II, when this unfortunately happened to the Jews, and how their features were exaggerated, made into like very goblin-like images during World War II in terms of propaganda. Like with Elphaba, they did that too, and then Glinda, they made her look like the optimum of perfection and goodness. So I think they definitely could have gone further in those tones if it wasn't PG rated, but understandable, because I think they got a lot of excitement from kids going to watch the film, so they were like, we need to keep this PG rated. Again, I do think that some of the characters could have been fleshed out more. Example, because I really hoped that they would do this, but they didn't, which was kind of sad. A little bit they did, and we'll go into like further detail later with Fiyero, because even with the musical and stage show, I felt like he's a little bit empty, like on the stage in part 2. Like, of course there are some themes, and don't get me wrong, I love him, but it just seems kind of like shallow in terms of like the representation of that on stage, and that's really hard to do. As like I've said, it's really hard to do a lot of stuff on stage and in a limited amount of time. I think in the film though, they did have these moments where there was moments fleshed out just a little bit more, which did help, I think, the romance, not only between Fiyero and Elphaba, but even just him as a person and his beliefs. But I do feel like if we got like a little like 10 extra minutes like of like things that could have happened, it could have happened with Fiyero. We could have gotten a little bit more time with him. Overall though, in terms of the writing, they did the best they could. Again, people who are fans of Wicked know that out of the two acts, Act 2 is a little bit weaker than Act 1. Again, it's really hard because they introduce all these different themes in Act 1, but also have to wrap it up in like a couple of like hours or however long Act 2 is. I would have liked the movie to be longer, but yeah, that's stuff to do with Universal, unfortunately. Again, sets were amazing. I love how they created Kiamako for Fiyero's spare castle, and it was so beautiful, like surrounded by these waterfalls and all these cliffs and such. It was so beautiful. I love the establishment of the yellow brick road. We saw that at the beginning of the film, other areas of the Emerald City, and of course Elphaba's hideout, which I so love. It gives me such druidic vibes. I'm a druid in like D&D when I play a lot of the time, so it gave me such like earthy druidic like magic, and I love it so much. And like I love how she just sits there and weaves. You see the board of like propaganda and information that she's got, her map of Oz. It's such incredible work gone into these sets to make this movie feel more alive than it did on stage. And it's just, yeah, it was so beautifully put together, and everybody who's a part of the crew should be so proud of themselves. Like, this movie was, like, again, not as incredible as the first movie, but still was an achievement in itself. Obviously, we know the music was by Stephen Schwartz, and they have 2 new songs with the girls, Cynthia and Ariana, working on it and writing and producing them, which was Girl in the Bubble and No Place Like Home. I think, personally, in the movie, the songs are a lot stronger than they are on stage. And I think that's because there were some changes made. Like, for example, Wonderful. I don't really like that song, like, in the Broadway show. Like, I'm like, meh, it's fine. But with the addition of Glinda, adds so much more depth and just beauty to the song and just how crazy it is, but we'll get into that later as well. And yeah, I think that there are some really good songs. Not all of them are amazing, but you know, you have No Good Deed, For Good, Wonderful, Couldn't Be Happier. I think it might just be because there's a lot more in-depth messages to these songs, so maybe people aren't really like a fan of that. But for me personally, I love these songs. Oh yeah, and of course, As Long As You're Mine, which is... can't wait to talk about that. I'll go into more detail about these songs when I talk about the characters, but Girl in a Bubble and No Place Like Home, I did enjoy these songs a lot. I thought I wouldn't like them because again, this is my fault though, but I had seen people being like, oh, these songs are like not that great, there was no use for them really in the story. But watching the movie, I completely disagree personally. I think it is a little bit on the nose, but I think that's okay because it's going in more depth into character, ambition, and story, so I thought those were okay. Now, we're just going to jump into the acting because I have a lot to say about the acting choices in this movie and just analyzing these characters because I loved doing it last time and now is the time to do it again. Starting with Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. Now, I was actually really shocked by how good he was. I haven't watched a lot of his work besides Jurassic Park, and so that's why I was like, I don't really know how he's going to play the wizard in terms of when he has more in-depth scenes. The only thing I knew was that in part 1, he would barely have anything, but in part 2, he would have a lot more meaty scenes to work with in terms of the musical. Like I mentioned in the first review that I did, he is quite the con man. He is always looking to kind of get the upper hand against people who might give him an advantage, as example, Elphaba. But also, as constantly repeated through this film and even in the first one, he talks about how he always just wanted to be a simple man. Even when he came to Oz, he had no interest in power and such. However, there's an interesting line that he says in this film that actually really rings true with the people of Oz and how I guess they can easily be manipulated, which is the fact that this is simplified because, again, I can't remember. I've only watched it once, but I'm going to go see it again soon. And he basically says, even if he did tell them all the truth about not being truly magically enhanced, they wouldn't listen because they only hear what they want to hear. Which is basically like, he never wanted this power, he never wanted to be the figurehead for the Emerald City, and yet he kind of became that because that's what the people wanted. He came from like the sky in a balloon and they were like, you know what, you are kind of magical, let's just make you the Wizard of Oz. But that doesn't make him innocent in any means because he's still wanted the animals caged. He still had the monkeys like being his spies. He wanted them to still be his spies, even when Elphaba gave the deal and said, yeah, but like I kind of still want the spies a little bit. And there is also this aspect of him not wanting, deep down, I think, as like a lot of characters in Wicked alike, they don't want their image to be destroyed or their reputation to go away, and that's him. He's got so much power at his fingertips that when it comes down to it, he struggles with making a decision. For example, like when he's talking to Elphaba, and Elphaba gives him like an ultimatum, like free the animals, free the monkeys, and then let me come and be a part of this, and then we can make a difference. And he still is struggling to make a decision. And I think that's also because he doesn't want his image to be destroyed or tainted in any way. And I think he wanted Elphaba to be happy, I think, to an extent, even when he sings the song Wonderful. I think he also really wanted her for the wrong reasons, because he also saw the potential in her to do so much more on his behalf. So we do see that struggle in him, like trying to figure out if he actually wants to support Elphaba or not. And we see this in the film so many moments, and this is why I love Jeff's performance, because there's so many times when he doesn't even say words and he's just sitting there contemplating different things in terms of his relationship with Elphaba and Glinda and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed those scenes a lot. Like these really quiet moments. He doesn't say much, but you can just tell he's so uncomfortable and doesn't really want to do it. The song Wonderful, we're just going to briefly talk about it, but it is so deeply like rooted in kind of what's happening in the world at the moment, is specifically in America. And that's why I've been seeing a lot of posts being made about this and people thinking and critically like unpacking Wicked and its propaganda, which I really love, because this story, like any time in the world you could probably put it and it like fits, like in terms of the propaganda being used and like the government and all that stuff, like authoritarian use and like pointing fingers at particular people, and in this case animals, and putting the blame on them. It's very likely that you could probably pop it into history a lot. This is why I love Wicked, because it's not just a story about friendship, it's also deeply like analytical in terms of its political like structures and propaganda and all that such. It's so good. And I do want to talk about the best part of Jeff's performance, which was when he found out, and again, super huge spoiler, so go away if you still haven't left for some reason, that Elphaba is his daughter. Like the fact that obviously he slept with Elphaba's mother and she became a child of both worlds, and that is why basically she was inherently green. The horror that he displayed in his performance was absolutely amazing, because you can see him immediately just go into shock, and that gasp he lets out and the lights flashing across his face, it was just such a perfect scene. And you see the horror, the fact that he had magic all along, which was at his fingertips. It was his daughter. And immediately doesn't even fight Glinda when she says, you need to leave and you're going home. And he just says, yes, I'm going. And I think I love that kind of change, because in the musical it's kind of like a comedy moment where he's like, oh yes, I'm gonna go, and la la la, like making like all these different like excuses, like just sort of over the fact that his daughter is dead, and all this history that they could have had. But instead we stick with this kind of dreadful moment where he regrets it. And I love the shot, which really could mean so many things, and it pulls back and he's just standing there and you see the cogs of the machine that he's been working this whole time for this political regime, for his own good, for his own power, for his own look. And all the while, he could have had what he always wanted, which was a family, and he threw it away for, like, the Emerald City, and for power, and for greed. It's so heartbreaking, but also it's like, you had it coming. Like, you didn't even try to understand Elphaba. You just kept using her. Now, Michelle Yeoh as Madame Morrible. Incredible acting as Morrible, but I do think, unfortunately, she was done dirty with the extreme auto-tune on her voice. I think that the role wasn't too much of a big deal in terms of her singing. Of course, it would have been nice if we did have someone who did have the skills of a Broadway actress, kind of like what Cynthia and Ariana and even majority of the cast has brought to the table. But I kind of let it pass because Morrible is barely singing in a lot of the songs, so I was just like, it's alright. Like, it's 2 seconds that I can deal with of listening to auto-tune on a voice. I understand that John Mchu has a deep respect for Michelle, and that's why he kept asking her, because she said no for the role in the first place, and because she can't sing. And he just said, you know, like, we'll help you with that and such. I think what could have been better is they actually just got a professional singer to dub over her, because that happened with The Greatest Showman with Rebecca Ferguson, because she can't sing. They got a professional voice, or a professional singer to come in and sing. It's a choice, but again, Morrible has such short lines in the music that I was just like, yeah, it's alright. Her performance in acting was so good. Like, I absolutely loved her performance in this movie. We see her try and absolutely hate treating Glinda with kindness, because I think there's so much in her acting that, like, just shows her resentment towards Glinda. She sees no potential in this young woman. She just sees her as a means to an end to help her with her political scheming and propaganda. Yet it has so much weight because Madame Morrible had so much hopes for Elphaba, obviously for the wrong reasons, but because now that is her enemy, she has to use the student basically that's kind of like the replacement, and use her kind of to create this image of goodness or fake goodness and perfection, to take advantage and manipulate the people of Oz. She makes, again, I said this before, she makes Glinda into this figurehead of goodness and perfection and disguises it as something so marketable, like her engagement, her being a witch of good, and the bubble, and, you know, it's like everything that you could dream of, like a fairy tale story. And everything Glinda says has to be in line with the ideals of this authoritarian fascist regime. And it's just, yeah, there's so many layers to it that, like, you have to unpack it as a whole. And when you see that, you see how much, like, control Morrible has on everything in the story. Again, said this before, but with the propaganda, she makes Elphaba look everything that is the definition of wicked, while with Glinda, she makes every poster, everything about her beautiful, perfect, extreme, like extravagant, like all these parades with the confetti, and even the representation of Fiyero as the captain is a big deal. It's like this big ceremony to show the captain and Glinda being together. Definitely pushed hard on the idea that Elphaba had it out to kill all people in Oz. I was so shocked because obviously the cloud, Elphaba wrote like our wizard lies, and then she said Oz will die or something like that. I was so shocked. I was like, are you serious? And then her screaming and like provoking the audience that was in the scenes that Elphaba wanted them all dead. And obviously you kind of get tired of it because she's just trying to push this narrative. And I love how she basically eats cake and she gets pushed into the wedding cake in that scene. That had me cackling. That was hilarious. One of my favorite scenes, though, it's so dark, is that I love how she's standing in her office where all the propaganda is and stuff, and she's just maniacally typing, and it's creepy because you just see, and I think props to Michelle for doing this, but her eyes were like wide and she's just staring at it, and it's the middle of the night and it's so dark. It looks like such an evil set scene, and so I really appreciate that scene and showing like how terrible Morrible is. And another scene that's my favorite is when she snaps, which is the same scene basically. She snaps at Glinda because Glinda, obviously it's really late in her realization of all these events, but she is coming to terms with the fact that she was in the wrong. And when Glinda kind of comes up and says like, oh, like tries to poke her for answers and to get responsibility, I guess, for what she's done, Morrible's just like, I don't give a shit. Like, I could do whatever I want. And Glinda still doesn't have the confidence to fully stand up to Morrible, so that's why Morrible just easily outdoes her. She's like, are you seriously feeling bad now? You're the one who helped for so many years. For 5 years you helped me, and now you feel bad? Questionable. And specifically picks on her because of her decision about Nessa, which we'll talk about later. But she is like, why are you feeling bad now? Like, in the moment you enjoyed that little bit of power. You enjoyed kind of getting back at Elphaba, and now you feel bad. It's such a layered performance. And of course, I love that she gets payback, like, not her, but Glinda gets payback on Morrible and just gives her so much attitude, and Morrible's kind of like shocked by it. She didn't expect it. Now, one of my favorite performances of this film actually was Marissa Bode as Nessarose. Look, I knew what was coming for Nessa and her story, like I mentioned it in my first review. The intrigue and love that she has for Boq is going to change and become worse, kind of, because I didn't want to spoil it for people, and yeah, it definitely did that. I mentioned that it would be expanded upon, and boy was I right, and boy was I not prepared for how they did it. Me and my boyfriend were sitting next to each other, and I remember there was so many moments between her and Boq, which we'll get into it in a moment. We literally kept looking at each other like, what the hell, like, this is so screwed up. We see, sadly, how she clings to every interaction with him from the moment we start seeing her story. How she clings to every conversation and every eye contact that, like, she tries to kind of look at him, like, moves herself, trying to get in front of him and get eye contact with him. It's crazy. I empathize with her in a way, because when I was younger, I was very much like her and cling to every human interaction you have, and it could be so toxic. So I understand it and I empathize, but she goes to extremes levels. And you can see how, like, she has kind of like a trauma response, or like gets triggered, because the moment Boq mentions, oh, I'm going to leave, it's time for me to move on, she immediately gets angry and tells him to get out. But it comes with a price. Even though at the beginning of the scene she was reluctant to sign this law into power about animals being banned from transport, the moment that Boq said he was leaving, instead she took advantage of it and banned munchkins from leaving, which is insane. Being the governor and changing the law so the man that you're obsessed with and in love with can't leave, I get it, but also that's insane. And it's interesting in a way, because when he returns to her side, she doesn't expect to face the consequences for what she's done. She kind of thinks in her head, oh, it's okay, like, you know, we can be like happy together and stuff like that. But in reality, he is so mad, you know, especially when she kind of gets angry and tells him like, oh, like, I'll speak to you later, whatever. And he goes to walk out and she has kind of an attitude. Everyone is laughing, because it's like, do you not understand what you have done? Like, that is how kind of like in her own head that she is. Her sole goal is to get him to react to her like positively, but it's not happening and she's confused. Of course, when Elphaba comes to see her, she's immediately hostile, which is I was so annoyed. Understandable, because obviously Elphaba didn't come to see the dad when he died, but we all know why, because the dad openly hated Elphaba in front of Nessa too, and Nessa's just like, why didn't you come to the funeral? Why do you think? Because of the treatment that Elphaba got, which is really, really sad, that we saw in the first movie, and Elphaba was being the more mature one and made the decision for her own peace of mind, was like, no, I'm not going to go and say goodbye to him, because he didn't love me, he didn't care about me. Why would I go to someone's funeral if they didn't care about me? And then, oh, this made me mad, was when she said, never done anything to help me or be by my side when I needed you most. And I'm sitting there like, excuse me, what are you talking about? Because in part one, she literally stays at Shiz when she doesn't want to stay with Nessa to make sure that she settles in right. She goes and does things for Glinda because Nessa asks, and does all these things for her, and Nessa's like, you never did anything for me. Girl, please. In terms of the magic though, Elphaba probably didn't want to, because she knew how Nessa might have reacted, so that's why she never did it. But in this moment, which again, we'll break it down more in Elphaba's area, like when I'm talking about the character, but Elphaba was desperate. She loved her sister and needed her on her side to make a difference. So that's why she kind of took advantage of her relationship with her sister to try and get favor with her so that she would help her with the animals, like her cause. I understand that completely. And that's why she pulled the spell out and made her feel that feeling of floating on air. I think it's such a beautiful scene. Marissa acts so incredible in the moment because, again, they looked all age up. They all look older than what they did in the first film. And yet, she has that kind of youthful smile on her face, that feeling of, like, what she felt when she was going through the Dancing Through Life song. And I know that there's been weird criticism about this scene. I honestly love it even more because, again, people say, and people have commented on the fact that her being able to walk or being against being in a wheelchair is quite ableist in terms of the thematics. So instead they changed it to the feeling of wanting to float on air and wanting to be happy. I think that is more appropriate too, personally. I really love that they actually took time to think about that and put that into perspective, because I think if they did that in the film, I feel it would make people who are in wheelchairs, especially young people, feel like they are different, that they can't do everything that they can because they're in a wheelchair, and I feel like that's the wrong message to send. I think by showing, like, the floating on air feeling, it's showing that you can be happy. It's just a different type of happiness, and you can do anything that you want to, just in a different capacity. It breaks my heart because that feeling of floating on air died the moment Boq came in and mentions that he wants to leave to see Glinda at the wedding. Feeling of her coming down off of air is her coming down and facing reality and facing the fact that Boq isn't in love with her, and she can't face that and basically begins to shrink his heart. But also, she can't face the reality of her actions, like the consequences, which is the problem because, again, like, yes, cool that you're in love with Boq, but you're obsessed with him, you changed the law, and you did all this stuff to him, like the shrinking his heart and stuff. It's not okay. And more importantly, she's not even grateful for the moment of happiness that Elphaba gave to her, and the way that she calls to Elphaba too, like, where are you going? Why are you leaving me? Again, I think it's because she has been left behind, and because there are few people who do care about her. I love, and we'll talk about it later, but I love that Elphaba stands her ground and doesn't put up with her behavior anymore. She's like, no, that's it, I'm walking away, that's the end of it. And even when Elphaba tells her that, she still can't come to terms with it. It's insane. I'm like, girl, there's no saving you, sadly. And then, this is my favorite moment. The acting in this part, where the horror on her face when she sees Boq has been turned into a Tin Man, and also because there's a split second where she believes that Elphaba fixed him in the idea of, he's going to be in love with me, he's going to be perfectly fine now, like, we'll be together forever kind of situation, but is horrified to see what has happened, unfortunately, because Elphaba had to save him and unfortunately turn him into the Tin Man. And then her scream of desperation at the end was the icing on the cake, because I was hoping she would scream when Elphaba left, but I love that in that moment, she's all this pent-up rage, you can see it in her face, and she just screams. I'll put the screenshot here. And it was fantastic because so much said without words on her face, and even just with her emotions, it was fantastic. Such an incredible few scenes that we had with Nessa. And of course, unfortunately, she gets crushed by the house because she is the Wicked Witch of the East. And yeah, again, like I said last time, I'm not the biggest fan of her. She kind of deserved the house to fall on her, especially what happened to Boq and her obsession with him. I was like, you kind of deserve it, girl. But I do empathize with her in certain moments, which is like, I think that's the beauty of Wicked. Again, like, you have all these characters and you're like, you're a terrible human being, but I can empathize with you and I see why the things that you're doing, but I don't agree with you. Now, Ethan Slater as Boq, another standout, and I was not familiar with your game, Ethan Slater. You were fantastic. I do like that in the first scene with Nessa, he actually is quite awkward because, you know, he's kind of forced to stay with her and he's kind of just sitting there, like, really awkwardly, not knowing what to do and listening to her talk about, like, the laws and such. And from what we've been told in the movie, he was the only one who went to see her when her father died, which is really sweet. I think he did that, like, as a friend. But then, unfortunately, by doing that, sealed his fate because she, I'm guessing, got angry every time that he wanted to leave. Because I'm guessing he wanted to leave in the past 5 years, but couldn't leave because she would get upset, like she'd have those moments of a tantrum kind of, and he'd kind of get frightened by it. He doesn't want to upset kind of like the vibes in a way. Still have judgment though for him never telling Nessa how he truly felt. I understand that you were trying to get over a breakup, your infatuation with Glinda, but it was your responsibility to stand up and tell Nessa your true feelings a long time ago. Literally, you should have done it not even during Dancing Through Life, like that dancing scene, Oz Dust Bowl. You should have done it after that and been like, look, unfortunately I don't feel the same way, and yeah, that's it, we can be friends, sort of thing. But I guess, like, that's the kind of, like, one of the themes, I think, through this whole movie and through the story of Wicked is courage. Having the courage to step forward and just tell the truth. Like, that is something that is quite like a linear line throughout the whole entire film and through the stage production, is having the courage to step up and just be truthful, tell the truth. But a lot of characters struggle with that through this story, and I love the display of excitement that he had in terms of wanting to leave. Like, obviously he wants to move on in his life, he might want to go back to Glinda at that point, I can't remember, but he would just wanted to move on and do something more. But the horror, the absolute tragedy when he goes to the train station and they say Munchkins aren't allowed to leave Munchkin Land, they are banned, and then he remembers the law that was on her desk and how it was changed to animals and Munchkins can't leave. And his anger is absolutely valid. Like, I think he is the one character in this whole story that has the shortest end of the stick. He is manipulated by Glinda in the first film. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Y'all can come for me if you want to. He is manipulated by Glinda in the first film. She could have had the courage to tell him, look, I'm not interested in you. She could have told the truth, but she didn't. She manipulated him to go and be with Nessa, and him being naive and also so infatuated with Glinda that he was like, anything I do will be looked at like a good deed for her, which is messed up. And when he comes in during the scene when Nessa is floating, a lot of people say that it doesn't make sense. Like, why would he say like, oh, you don't need me anymore, you've gotten everything that you wanted? And I think people don't look into the scene a little bit more and kind of unpack it. It could have been seen in multiple ways. Like, for one, it could be the fact that Elphaba is there. Her sister has returned, so she does have someone in her life that cares about her that isn't necessarily Boq. Number two, she is the happiest that she's ever been, and he thinks maybe whatever it is that's causing her to be happy, whether it's the magic or something else, that she will be able to live without him. She doesn't need to rely on him to give her gratification to be happy, because he probably hasn't seen her that vibrant and happy in 5 years since the father died and since she was at Shiz. So he probably was excited and thinking that finally she's happy and she probably doesn't need me anymore. And he's still infatuated and obsessed with Glinda after all this time. I think I would have liked a little bit extra stuff about that outside the study. Maybe he's looking through the newspaper and you can see him getting really desperate about the wedding, and you know, maybe being like, like I really need to go to the Emerald City, and you kind of see it through no words, you just see through acting. Would have loved an extra scene like that, but that's okay. Oh, the body horror of him turning into the Tin Man. Also, may I just say, the makeup for the Tin Man is insane. I cannot wait, and I hope they put a behind the scenes like footage together for him and the Scarecrow, because I really would love to see it. It looked so good on screen. Like, Ethan's performance elevates it so much more, like the desperation of how he walks, and the like his voice too sounds a little bit different, so I love that. And the sound design too. And again, like the scene when he's changing, or like when his heart is shrinking, you can hear something. I don't know what it is. Whatever they did in the sound design, it sounds like something is being squeezed. And again, he's valid for being angry because he wakes up and he is turned into this monstrosity in his eyes, and the way he stalks towards Nessa is terrifying. And again, the acting from both of them was so tangible in the scene. Like, you feel the horror from Nessa, and you feel, again, also the horror, but the rage from the Tin Man, and it's just, it was so good. And March of the Witch Hunters, again, Ethan, I was not familiar with your game, but your vocals were insane, because even though there's so much emotion, and sometimes that could overtake a singer's voice and can, like, really not sound great, but this sounded amazing, and with every word punctured with horror and, like, anger. And then the way he looks at Glinda, who's standing on the balcony, was chilling, like, terrifying. It looked like something out of a horror movie. So I love the way that they did that, the way they lit his face up too. I'm pretty sure it's like pink lighting, and it's just like a remembrance of everything he was kind of fighting for. Now, Jonathon Bailey as Fiyero. Oh, like, where do I start? I will just preface saying Fiyero is one of the characters I wish they did flesh out a bit more, like I said at the very beginning. However, there are a few extra scenes that we're going to talk about that make the character arc a bit more in-depth, and Jonathon carried this performance to make it what it was, may I just say. He is such a brilliant actor, and I'm so glad he's getting his flowers. Sexiest man alive for 2025, hell yeah. And also just all his accomplishments for the year. He's done so much this year, same with the other cast, but still, like, well done, Jonathon. And so yeah, we're about to go on a deep dive about one of my favorite characters in romances with Elphaba, so hang on to your chairs, kiddies. Now, kind of like the first movie, but a little bit more in depth here. We see him struggling with his identities and his morals still, and specifically when he becomes captain of the Gale Force troops. And he clearly still cares for Elphaba, like during, thank goodness, couldn't be happier. You can tell that he cares for Elphaba, because it seems, even before getting the title of captain, that it's hinted at that he seemed to have been looking for her prior to that. I think what was in his mind, even though it's not said on screen, was that he became the captain of the guard so he could try and find her, but also manipulate them so they couldn't actually catch her, but keep an eye on her. I love how, like, visually angry he does get too, like when he hears how the crowd is talking about Elphaba, like talking about how ugly she is and all these horrible disfigurations that they think that she has, and it's just, meh, it's ick. And so I also was very angry too, and you can see it from him, like him telling Glinda, like, this is, like, how could we stand and listen to this? This is not okay. That was our friend and someone that we care about. Now, people are going to be like, why didn't Fiyero go and leave sooner and go and find her? Because he probably was looking for her, but like he says in the song, Thank Goodness and Couldn't Be Happier, he literally says if anybody else found him, or not him, found Elphaba, or found out that Fiyero was looking for Elphaba, they would go and kill her. And if he found her, then they would follow, and maybe she would die. So he doesn't want that to happen. Of course, he chases Elphaba down at the very beginning of the film, and I love that there is kind of a callback to the joke he made about her blending into the foliage, because I think it relates to that scene, because in this moment, specifically when he's looking around, he looks in the corner of his eye and then says, no, we can move on, it's okay. Because he did see her. He saw her and is trying to protect her as the captain of the guard and manipulate everyone to look in the other direction so she can do what she needs to do for her fight. Now, let's delve into the relationship of Glinda and Fiyero, and then Elphaba and Fiyero. But first, Glinda and Fiyero. Of course, let me start off by saying this. Cheating is not cool. Don't do it. It is not nice. And like what I said about Boq talking to Nessa about his true feelings, Fiyero should have done that with Glinda. He should have been open with her and said, look, I'm not actually in love with you. I care about you a lot. I love you as, like, my best friend, but I'm not interested in terms of romance. But he didn't have the courage to do it. Like I said, courage is a big deal in this film, and he didn't have the courage to step up and do that just yet. Because, like Glinda, he was very much concerned about the surface level of the relationship, which was how people portrayed them as a couple, as a perfect good couple from the outside, not actually inwards where they actually had a connection, because Glinda and Fiyero didn't have a connection. Yes, they were really good friends, but there was no romantic love between them. And please remember, in this instance too, Glinda forced him into marriage with him, into an engagement. He didn't want to be with her. He just thought they were together as a couple, and then she's just like, oh, by the way, we're engaged, even though he didn't propose to her, and she didn't even propose to him, and that's why it's so wrong. We'll get into that part later, because I want to delve into it more when we're talking about Glinda. And the moment he does get courage, though, is when he finally comes face to face with Elphaba again. He sees her facing off with the wizard, and in that moment when facing the gun towards her, seeing the wizard and seeing this situation, he realizes this is all wrong. Like, I have been part of the system of this regime, yes, taking advantage of it to find Elphaba, but still, he can't live with that anymore. He can't live with lying to himself and being false to himself, because he also cares about the animals, he cares about the things that Elphaba is fighting for, but he wasn't able to talk about them out loud because of the regime that he was part of. Again, don't get me wrong, I think he had a deep connection with Glinda, but it was nowhere near the level of love and loyalty he has for Elphaba. Now, talking about Elphaba and Fiyero, oh, this is my favorite part, because I love their relationship so much. Now, people say it is quite surface level, but I disagree, and I'm about to break down why I don't believe it's surface level. Again, their relationship is quite controversial because of how they get together, and again, I do not condone cheating. But I will say this, which has gotten me into a lot of trouble online recently because I love this couple so much, but I'ma tell it straight, guys. Fiyero never loved Glinda. He enjoyed how the relationship looked on the outside, like how people were perceiving it, but once he had that courage and was tired of pretending to be that fake, false perception of himself, he let it go and, of course, yes, breaking Glinda's heart, and went with the person he knew, he loved, and was so loyal to the whole time. Now, as long as you're mine, the way I was lifted to heaven and died with this song and this scene. I do wish we had a bit of time between As Long As You're Mine and, like, you know, the way that they got together. Look, in the stage show, it's a lot worse because they literally just go to a forest and start making out. In this, they do slow it down a little bit, and John M. Chu has said too, and this is why I mean that Universal got involved a lot, is that there was supposed to be a whole 10-minute period where they talk in the movie before As Long As You're Mine, but it got cut! So I do really appreciate that we do get one brief moment of silence with these two love interests, and there's this moment of him taking in her home. He kind of like admires this scene, and again, testament to Jonathon, because he doesn't say a word in the scene, and he just takes it all in, and there's a small smile on his lips, and then you see kind of like that desire for Elphaba come out. You know, there's this tension between them because there is so much chemistry between them, and that they've been hiding for so long. Like in the first movie we saw it, but they knew they couldn't act upon it. And in this movie, they're both really excited. It's a really tangible moment. And, you know, there's an intimacy of him taking the cloak off her. You know, it's such a big weight on her shoulders and she gets to take it off with him at her side. And I love that they don't rush to make out. They don't rush into the kind of like the sexual stuff or anything. They just take their time. I love that the scene breathes so much. And she walks away and, you know, she has this moment of changing into something sexy because she is in love with Fiyero and very sexually attracted to him. So I love that there's that moment of her changing, putting her hair up, looking a little bit more like, you know, kind of put together a little bit like in her own home. Now, it's not lying, it's looking at things a different way. It's one of my favorite lines in this whole story, because this line, and people kind of laugh at it, and I think try to find it comedic, but I think it is the most romantic thing to ever say to someone, because it's not talking about physical appearance, it's about truly being seen. You're looking beyond the physicality, you're looking beyond a person, and both Fiyero and Elphaba see each other so clearly, and that's what they focus on in the moment, and that's just such an intimate way for them to finally come together in this moment of romance. And I really appreciate, I mean, I think this is for something that Jonathon did, and even just Cynthia, like both of them, their chemistry is insane in this scene. But I love how he's trying to be really playful and do the kind of like weird eye thing he did in the first film, and she giggles, and it's like, oh, that is such like a sweet moment, because we see that facade of like strength of Elphaba kind of fade away, and it's just this woman who's longing to be loved and to do good things, and it's so beautiful. They're flirting, you know, and the tension is building between them, and it's just, yeah, I love that it's so playful and just like intimate. And also because I will mention it later too and go into it later, but this is probably Elphaba's first kiss. So when they kiss after flying, which was so beautiful, by the way, with the fireflies and all that stuff, when they kiss and she kind of pulls away like shy, I was like, oh my god, I love it so much. Because again, she probably wasn't in any romantic relationships with anyone, and that's why in this moment it's like the boy that she had a crush on from high school, she's still in love with him for so long, and finally she gets this kiss. It's just so cute and sweet. And people keep saying that he's not actually in love with her, that his love is so shallow. And I'm sitting here like, well, the next few scenes are about to deny everything of that. Because what is shallow about the fact that he went, you know, he let her go after her having her vision and having that beautiful talk and saying that they will always be together. God damn it. And then him trying to make his way, you know, to safety, and then going and finding the flying monkeys by accident, and yet he could have left. He could have been like, okay, let's go, like, we'll wait for Elphaba somewhere else. Instead, he knew that she was in danger. He knew that she needed help, and took the flying monkeys to her and told Chistery, I think that's his name, the leader of the monkeys, to protect her, to stay with her by her side, and sacrificed himself so she could leave. Now please tell me what else is more romantic than that. Sorry, I get very passionate about this because I hate it when people say that their love is shallow when it's not. And people saying that he hated Glinda and stuff, I don't think he hated her. And the moment that tells that is when he's holding the gun up to her head, which is the most frightening scene in this whole movie. It's so sad. And the way his hand is violently shaking, and the look on his face, Jonathon, you are amazing. He didn't want to hurt Glinda. He loves Glinda in a very different way compared to how he loves Elphaba. He cares about her, he loves her and cherishes Glinda, but again, not with the same ferocity and like loyalty that he has to Elphaba. And just that moment when he sacrifices himself, he knows he's probably gonna die, and he's kind of standing there like, I am so sorry, Glinda, like, I didn't want this to happen. And yet, she understands. We'll get into that later, but later, I just say, she understands. Like, from the beginning, I said this in part 1 in my review, Fiyero and Elphaba's relationship is so unconditional. There's no conditions on how he should love her. Just the minute he meets her, he is so taken by her. He's like, this woman is so different from anybody I've ever met, and is just intrigued with her. He's not, you know, rude to her about her skin. He's intrigued, and like that first movie really builds like on the recognition that he is grateful for her magic and of her, and this also connects to the ending of the film, which I'm going to break down a little bit later because there's so much to unpack in the ending, so we'll talk more about that later. Now, Ariana Grande Butera as Galinda, or Glinda, Upland. With part 1, if you've seen my review, I was absolutely blown away by her, and this movie took it a whole step higher with her performance. She truly understands Glinda as a character, the good and the bad, especially her flaws and what hurts her as a character. One thing I do appreciate is getting to see kind of the beginnings of, in a way, trigger for why she wants to be perceived as good and just wants to be perfect and popular. And that is with the young Glinda scene. That little girl was so precious. But I love that we got that moment because she has always wanted magic. She's always wanted to be magical, but realizing she doesn't have that, and her mum telling her, it's okay, people will love you. It doesn't matter if you have magic. So in a way, it explains why she's so concerned about people's perception of her. She overcompensates for something that she doesn't have. And I love that they included that because it creates so much more depth for Glinda. Now, couldn't be happier. Honestly, I loved this song. There was little hints of Ariana with some of the notes she did, but also there was like that very operatic voice that she uses. And like I said last time, when she sings high, she's lying. So there were parts of it where she did sing high, and that's why I was like, we know it. We see this image of like false perfection, of this false life, and being the figurehead for this authoritarian regime was insane. And I absolutely loved how they showed that, the little things that Morrible did in behind the scenes for certain bits of that, and just instigating so much like falsity in a way. Being Glinda the Good gives her these privileges that she probably wouldn't have had if she wasn't this person. And for a moment, after talking to Fiyero, she kind of hesitates in that story she's telling everyone, like, I couldn't be happier. Like, she knows that he's not happy deep down, like, especially because of what they're saying about Elphaba, but also even with the engagement, she can kind of see that he's not happy, and she begins to think about the relationship they have, and that she truly isn't happy without Elphaba, and that the happiness that she has now, all these privileges, come at a cost. What is that cost? It's the loss of her friendship with Elphaba. Elphie comes to visit. It's really interesting because Glinda really wants her to still stay in the city. She can't stand the idea of Elphaba leaving her again and keeps saying, you need to stay here, let's go see the wizard, let's sort this out. And Elphaba doesn't want that because she knows that, in a way, and in this scene it kind of proves it, she doesn't see the point or the necessity in freeing the animals, and that's why Elphaba leaves so suddenly. Now, wonderful, again, I said that I was going to break it down here, so here we are. I love that Glinda is involved in this scene. It makes it so much more, like, heavy and just kind of messed up because Glinda is unintentionally helping the wizard kind of in his schemes, but the real reason she's involved is because she wants Elphaba to stay. She loves her friend. She loves that she is here in this moment and she wants her to stay for good. And again, coming back to that notion of true happiness for Glinda, we see her truly smile when Elphaba is like, finally, yes, I will stay. She's like, I'm so happy, and it's like genuine, because there are scenes in this movie, and this is all up to Ariana, she really shows that, like, this false perception of happiness she's putting on, and that in that moment when she looks at Elphaba is like really sad because she does look genuinely happy. The sad thing is because she wants everything. She wants the Emerald City, she wants to be the Good Witch, she wants Fiyero, she wants Elphaba, and she wants the wizard. So it's just everything that she wants it in this moment. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think, again, that's why Wicked is so incredible as a story, is because it delves into all these different kind of themes. And selfishness is one of them. And in a way, Glinda is very selfish because she can't make the choice, and we'll talk about it later, she can't make the choice to ever leave for the people that she loves. She wants them to stay for her. If not, she's unhappy. Also, may I just say, this is all up to John M. Chu and the editing team, but the contrast of Glinda walking down the aisle while Elphaba is walking down an aisle looking at the caged animals, that was insane. She's walking towards a future that she thinks is perfect and will look perfect and will be perfect to her. In reality, it's not going to be that. And she thinks that she's going to get everything that she wants, but it's not going to be like that, ever. Completely valid that she's upset. I will say that. However, she, again, forced Fiyero into the engagement. He had no say whatsoever. She went along with Morrible and the wizard's plans of wanting to get married to him, so that there's this big, it's a big thing to the public, and in her eyes that looked like perfection. It was like marrying Fiyero. This is the thing, I think that she loved him, but not to the extent that she was kind of pushing herself to believe. I don't think that. I think, of course, she was upset by him leaving and him kind of betraying her. I think it was because he left with Elphaba and she didn't have the courage to do that. And I think it's pretty screwed up that she told Morrible and the wizard about Nessa, because please don't tell me that she didn't know. She knew deep down what Morrible was trying to do. She was trying to get Elphaba and trying to capture her so that they could get rid of her or take care of her and get her out of the way of making trouble. And I think this is where that whole bubble, like girl in a bubble, kind of comes in. Like, she knew what was going to happen, but she was so in her world. Again, though, I will say this, she had every opportunity to live with Elphaba. In the first movie, there's so many opportunities. In this movie too, so many opportunities. And even it seems that her and Fiyero had multiple conversations about leaving. But like he says in the I Couldn't Be Happier song, she cannot resist the privileges and the benefits of being in the Emerald City and being a part of this fascist regime. The cat fight, I need to say, was absolutely hilarious. I was not expecting that slap to be so forceful. Likewise with Elphaba, I didn't expect that either. And the use your hands, greedy! Oh, that was so good. It was hilarious. Coming back to the scene where Fiyero sacrifices himself for Elphaba, there's a very clear message being sent to her, and she realizes that in the moment. She recognizes that her and Fiyero shared the same love for Elphaba and understands in the moment why she can't be mad. Hence the line, he was never going to hurt me, he was just in love with her. He was doing what she never could do for Elphaba. Make those sacrifices which she couldn't do. Now, The Girl in the Bubble, this is obviously her original song. Again, like I said at the beginning, I think it is a little bit on the nose, but I really like that we do delve into her awareness and her realizing how wrong she's been, like living this lie. Like literally the lyrics is such a beautiful life built on lies. Realizing the mistakes she has made being a part of the Wizard of Oz's like regime of authoritarian fascist ideals. She realizes this through her mistakes, through the idea of perfection, instead of recognizing the love and the opportunity that was in front of her with Elphaba and even Fiyero. Talking about the scene with For Good and just like her going to Elphaba's side, I love that she does that, recognizing the mistakes that she has made. Unfortunately though, Elphaba had already made up her mind about what was going to happen in that sense, so I'm going to talk about that later at the end. Now, the line of not with your eyes, with theirs is quite similar to the notion of it's looking at things another way, because I think they are meant to serve the same sentiment. How Fiyero and Glinda see Elphaba a very different way compared to how Oz sees her, which is through the lens of love. Now, people might fight with me with this, and that's totally fine, because this happened in the books, like there was a romance between Elphaba and Glinda, and that's why I believe in this one, Glinda does love Elphaba, and has always longed to be with her. I'll discuss this more in Cynthia's part and towards the end of the movie segment that I'm going to do. Glinda being the one to save the animals and be the one to kind of be their savior was always necessary in this story. She has always been this perception and image of goodness, except this time she genuinely is being good and trying to be better. Like I said in my first review, is that she does a lot of things to be perceived as good, not to genuinely do it out of kindness or goodness. So in this moment towards the end of the film, she uses true kindness by using the privileges that she has as Glinda the Good and as this image of pure goodness. Why? Because the image that Morrible did build eventually is used for good, because it was popular, like people were attracted to that, so she uses that popularity to actually send a message that is good. Not the animals, but the people of Oz are all in this bubble built on the propaganda and the influence that Morrible had actually spread the truth with her privileges and her power, which again is popularity. Now, Cynthia as Elphaba Thropp was just an absolute star in this role. Like I said, the first movie absolutely blew me away with her performance. I knew she would be incredible. I've seen so many of her performances like online, and she's just so cool and amazingly talented, an angel. Like Ariana knew Glinda, she knew Elphaba, and why the decision she made was so important to the story. Now, one moment I do want to talk about is the beginning where she believes Fiyero has betrayed her, and it basically just doesn't care about her anymore. And it's such a heartbreaking scene because of course, we, the audience, can see kind of like what he's doing. Turn their eyes away from her so that she can escape and do what she needs to do. But she just sees a man that she is in love with who is betraying her in this moment. And it is so sad. And in that moment believes he never truly saw her. And yeah, it's just heartbreaking because it's like, no, Elphaba, no, stop. Now, the song, No Place Like Home, I actually really love this song. It is so powerful and I think encapsulate a lot of struggles that have happened through history. For example, the LGBTQ rights, same with the acts for the African and African Americans for equality as well in terms of rights for voting. No fight can occur without sacrifice, and that's what the song made me believe in, because you're fighting for a place that doesn't want you or like has fought to not have you in its presence. And people have given criticism for that people can't always stay, and I completely agree. Sometimes you do have to lose the fight and walk away from it, but without struggle there is no success, and we wouldn't be in the world that we are in without that right now. And I think that's the message that they're trying to send, that we still need to have that strength. Yes, of course, it's okay to walk away, but you need to stand and fight for the things that you care about, which is your home. And it might not be the exact place, it might be the people that you're fighting for. So I think that is such an incredible message to send right now. Briefly talking about Elphaba's encounter with Nessa, obviously we spoke about it earlier, but I do want to talk about it from the perspective of Elphaba. You see that there's so much baggage in this family between these two sisters. There's so much history and so much trauma between them because of the bond that they have, because of the relationship they had with their father, and it's just so messy. Longs for Nessa to just be on her side and actually love her and just be her sister, and that's why she reaches for the grimoire and wants her to feel that happiness and goes to do the spell. And she says it too in the song, I can't remember the line exactly, but finally these powers, something good has happened. And I think that's so beautiful but also tragic. It's just never seen in that way by anybody. And Elphaba, I love this moment where she makes the decision to turn her back on Nessa. She's like, look, we've tried it. I've been so patient with you. I've done everything that I can to make you happy, and yet nothing I ever done is good enough. I'm sorry, but I'm walking away from you now, and leaves. And I love that moment so much. It is so powerful. And that's why I think people have criticized, I guess, whether it was the directing or Cynthia's choice not to have such an emotional reaction to Nessa's death. But I think it fits it, because in this perception, Elphie is very mature. She's come to terms with her and her sister aren't close. And so, of course, I think deep down she is sad. She is sad for the loss of her sister. And I think the reason she gets mad is not only for her sister and the fact that Glinda took shoes off a dead girl's body, but also because those were her mother's. Those are her mother's shoes. So of course she wants them back. She wants those memories to be kept safe. Another criticism I've seen is her choosing to trust the wizard again. And people need to think of it from her perspective. She's been alone for 5 years. She's been trying to fight for the animals, but has made no progress, unfortunately. And now she has this moment, and a bit of a moment of weakness, where that these false messages will stop, that she will also, like Glinda, be able to have the life that she wishes to have, which is to have Glinda in her life as her best friend still. Of course, that doesn't come to be because the wizard was lying, and I love how she just gets so angry that she just raises her voice. She's like, I've had enough, and just says, run, and breaks the locks. I was like, oh my god, this scene is so good. Though we talked about the Elphaba-Fiyero relationship, I'm going to talk about it again from the perception of her. For Elphaba, she also knows that. She knows that deep down Fiyero didn't love Glinda the same way that he did for her. I think deep down she knew that. But also I think she also was tired of having to ask Glinda to come with her, because I think she did in that moment want to ask her and bring her along, but I think there was that too much friction in that moment. She couldn't do that. Now, as long as you mind, not going to linger on it too long. We've already discussed it, but I do love how she hesitates for a moment. And when he says that she's beautiful, she immediately deflects. She says, why? What? And she's very defensive because she's ready to be told a lie. But then when told that line of it's seeing things another way, immediately understands that he does see her for who she truly is, for the things that she believes in, not as just physicality, but as a person. Now, we are going to talk about my favorite song, No Good Deed. This song, I have been waiting for it for so long. The way I was teased in all the trailers, and finally I got to see it on the big screen. My mouth was literally wide open, tears falling down my face as she flew into the air. The monkeys are surrounding her and she's doing that beautiful high note. Like, what? There's so much in-depth stuff in there. There's so much to tell from just words, and even from her acting choices in this song too. It's just so powerful, because this song is basically analyzing everything that she's done as a witch, and how all her acts of kindness were never appreciated and just seen as inherently evil. And she even questions her own intentions. Was she doing it for good attention? What was it? Was she actually doing it for good reason? And I think it also hints at the possibility of Fiyero even hating her for trying to save him. So that's why she stops. She stops and then she says, Fiyero, saving you, I promise no good deed will I attempt to do again. And it's so sad. It's like, oh my God. Like it's heartbreaking, because now she thinks that everything she's ever done is not worth it. Starting to fall into that kind of thinking of like spiraling. Has always tried to be good, and yet in this moment she feels so hurt that she's tired of trying to gain people's favor, trying to gain people's love. She's just tired and says, you know what? Fine. I'm the Wicked Witch of the West. Now, the song that broke me the most was For Good. And this scene means so much to me. And it's so heartbreaking because this song has so many meanings, whether it's for relationships or a friendship. It has so many layers to it. It's basically lyrics of a story of thanks for the lessons you've taught me, how I will carry you, and the love that you showed me throughout my whole life. But now it's basically time to say goodbye. And like I said previously, I think Elphaba and Glinda did love each other romantically, like genuinely. I think Elphaba came to terms with the fact that Glinda would never have the courage to actually be with her. Now stick with me while I talk about this, because I know people might get upset when I say this, but let's talk about it. Like mentioned earlier in my review, Glinda had so many opportunities to leave the Emerald City and leave with Elphaba or leave with Fiyero, but she never had the strength or the courage to refuse the, how should I say it? the tempting privileges that come with living in the Emerald City with the wizard and with Madame Morrible. She always asked Elphaba to give up her dreams, her plans to live with her in the Emerald City. Same with the end of the first movie. Immediately, even though it's shown that the wizard doesn't have any magic, doesn't actually have good intention, she immediately is infatuated with this life of popularity, of privilege, and just messed up stuff, and she's enamored by it. And you kind of stand there with Elphaba and it's like, really? Like, are you serious right now? And so she always wanted Elphaba to give up what her dreams were, and I think Elphaba would have given it all up, but not at the price of giving up her morals. Now, the seeds of doubt I talked about in my first review. Yes, Elphaba loved Glinda so much. She loved her, she found her hilarious, and appreciated her as a friend. But she remembers all the times that she hurt her. She remembers their first encounter where it was very racist, where saying that she wanted to change her skin. Yes, Elphaba wanted that to happen, but the way that she said it was so inhuman, like, oh, and humiliated her at the Ozdust Ball. She remembers that. Those are things that hurt her. How she didn't come with her at the end of the first film, knowing that they both had so much potential to do good, but yet Glinda never had the courage to step up and be with her. And that's the same with the example of her trusting Fiyero over Glinda when releasing the lion cub. And that leads into why Elphaba makes the decision she does in relation to Glinda in this film. Like, she loves her deeply, but knows the better outcome is for Glinda to stay behind and do what she couldn't, which was free the animals, start a brand new chapter for Oz as this actually good, kind leader, which Elphaba never would have been able to achieve. And also another interesting thing is, if Glinda had said yes to coming with her, who would have made those changes to Oz? Oz would have stayed the exact same way, especially because Morrible was still in power. Elphaba knew that Glinda had new power that nobody else had, and she needed to take advantage of it, to make a difference. And she did that out of love for her friend, because she could see that Glinda regretted the things that she had done. So this was kind of her peace offering of, I love you, but this needs to happen, and I need to leave you behind to hopefully do some good where I couldn't. Now, an examination of the ending. Let's break this down. So, of course, the Scarecrow ends up being Fiyero. It was hinted at throughout the first movie and even through Dancing Through Life. And now, people have been criticizing the way that he looked. They're like, oh my god, it doesn't look like Fiyero. It looks like somebody else, and it doesn't look like he's handsome and stuff. That's the whole point, my friends. He is supposed to be basically how Elphaba feels about being green, and him coming to her scared. And this is why it's one of my favorite scenes, because he looks so scared opening those doors and looking her in the eye, because in that moment it's make or break for him, because he doesn't look the way that he did before, and he's insecure about it now. And let's just briefly talk about the fact that before this, when it was just them and him was normal before becoming the Scarecrow, he loved her unconditionally. Every single aspect of her, he loved without any judgment. Loved everything that makes her unique and different. And now, in this scene, the roles are reversed. She expresses that the same way that he did, which is, it's looking at things a different way. Because in the musical, it says, you did the best that you could, which is a meh line, but in this, he says, you saved me. You saved me, and the way that Jonathon expresses that too is through so much gratitude in his voice and in the way that he tries to hold her, like the gratitude, the love that he still has for her. There's no judgment whatsoever, and that's why she cries in that moment, because finally someone in a way is grateful for her for saving their life and loves her, even if it's not in the way that they wanted. And he's still grateful because this is a new chance at life with her and a new chance to actually be his true self. Also, people being shocked that he came back, maybe it wasn't really clear about what happened, but the moment that she gets that kind of cloth with his clothes, and it's been shown online, and I'll put a screenshot here. There's a message that he left on the back. He's alive. He's taking a while to get to her and will eventually get to her, and not to tell anybody. Knowing that he is coming to her, things have changed, and that is her one way out. Now, just to touch on the first film, like Elphaba's dream, because it's going to tie into what I'm going to talk about, is her original dream was to prove to everyone that she was good and to be degreenified because she was so ashamed of how she looked. And yet, by the end of this film, she realizes she can no longer fulfill her dream of saving Oz and is tired of trying to prove that she is good, because she has been good this whole time, but people have continued not believe in that. They continue to believe the lies that have been told, and now she's put that to rest and realizes it's time for her to step away. She has someone, Fiyero, who loves her unconditionally, who trusts her, who appreciates and respects her beliefs, and she realizes this is maybe her one chance of happiness, of unconditional love, no judgment, and takes that opportunity to leave with him. Of course, she could have gone back to Glinda. In terms of that, she's giving that chance to Glinda to actually redeem herself. Glinda has had the capacity for kindness. It's just she's always been so in her own bubble and obsessed with her own vision of her life that she hasn't been able to see past that. And now, after their encounter during For Good, she hopes that she'll have that courage to go forward and do the right thing. And she does. She becomes Glinda the Good, a benevolent leader. Might not be the happiest ending, but it is the best possible ending for Glinda. And the moment I love the most is when it's the final, wicked finale bit. Elphaba looks so like the world is off her shoulders. She looks so happy. I think it's because, and I know a lot of people aren't happy that Fiyero and Elphaba get to walk away into the sunset and be together, because people either don't like them being together or just believe that she should be with Glinda. But for me, personally, I love it because she chooses, instead of chasing for the attention and the love of other people, she sees that there is one person who truly loves her unconditionally and wholeheartedly, and decides to take that step with him to try and have a new life with him. And even that callback to the desert, like at the beginning in the first film we saw the desert, I love how in that moment in The Wizard and I, she stops and she's kind of afraid of the unknown, and yet in this she wholeheartedly walks into the sunset, grabs Fiyero's hand, let's go straight into the sunset. Like, she's not afraid of the unknown anymore and is so excited to start afresh with the man that actually loves her. And I think that's because she has the strength from Fiyero and knowing he will be by her side through it all. Now, briefly, the whole thing about the Grimoire opening to Glinda, truly it may open to just someone with a really good heart, which is why it opens to Elphaba. Not only because she is a woman from, like, two worlds collided and she has this incredible magic, but I think because she is basically a pure-hearted person of kindness. And finally, by the end of the film, Glinda has reached that too. She is trying to be better and is in the process of being better. And I think the Grimoire senses that. Now, this is something I found online and I do want to share it. I can't remember who said it, which is really annoying, but it's such this beautiful quote someone wrote online after watching Wicked for Good. And it's basically about the whole story about Wicked. The longing of never being truly loved, only rejected or idolized, makes Elphaba and Glinda's bond magnetic. Opposites starved for real connection, finding in each other the rare love that opens them up to become the people they were meant to be, even if it means saying goodbye. And it is one of my favorite quotes that I found online, and I had to share it because that is the whole Wicked experience. I love that so much, and that's why I love Wicked so much, because there's so many lessons, so many layers to the story, so much appreciation I have for it that's just deep beneath the surface of what's being represented. I will forever be grateful for this movie experience and being able to unpack it on my channel and talk about it. It's just been so amazing. So now for the score. I personally think I am going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. Now, of course, the pacing isn't perfect. Obviously, there are bits of the story that, you know, from the stage play I wasn't really a fan of, but I think that this was an 8, mainly because of the incredible sets, the incredible acting that carried this whole movie on its back, just the whole experience of being able to see Wicked unveil its themes and thematics and break it all down, and just being gifted with this movie. This has been such a gift to experience. But for now, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please remember to give it a like, subscribe, and comment. Please give me your thoughts about Wicked for Good. This movie was absolutely amazing. I still am not over it. Again, I'm going to be seeing it so many more times. Again, it means the world, and I cannot wait to just keep watching this movie and remember the experiences that were shared during this time. But yeah, for now, guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Crazy Fangirl out.